G'day, superstars. It's Peps. It's Lace Out, and we're here for the Round 9 review of a cracking week of AFL footy. Now, as you know, the great man joined us last week, Jamie the J-Dog Wallis, and he's on hiatus again. And I've reached out to the great man as my co-host tonight. Charlie Keegan is joining me. Welcome to Lace Out, Charlie, and it's great to have you finally on board. I reached out to you and said, Peps, I want to be part of the show. You're here, mate. How's it good to be on your favourite AFL podcast?
It's really good. Hopefully, you guys will tolerate some rookie mistakes, but we'll see how it goes.
There is no rookie mistake. Listen, if we've been doing this show for 6 years, if there's been any rookie mistakes, we have made them over the years. So don't be too hard on yourself. Hey, look, it's going to be an absolute barnstormer of an episode. We're going to get all into the news. A massive round of footy on the field. Not much off it. So we're going to get deep into the games. Charlie's been looking into it deep. I've been looking into it deep. We're going to be spinning the magnets. We are going to be having a look at the ladder. We're going to be going through all 9 games. Bit of contract news, splashing a little bit of cash, and also having a look at some huge games coming into round 10, double figures time for the AFL. But before we get into it, Charlie, you're a massive Essendon man. Tell us, what's it like to be an Essendon supporter right now? And more importantly, what do you love about just Lace Out and everything that we bring?
I like the fact that, particularly when I started watching you guys, you were doing like the season previews.
Yep.
And a mate of mine, Tommy Roker, did the Gold Coast Suns season preview with you guys about 2 years ago. And then I was like, I like the cut of his jib, so I'll start watching this show. And I've unfortunately been an Essendon supporter for as long as I've been alive, because they won the premiership when I was born, and they won it again when I was 7. But it's been slim pickings since then, unfortunately. But currently I write for the Raw. I do power rankings for them.
Yep.
Mainly it's just a good bit of fun, really. I like talking about footy, and if I can dunk on Richmond and Collingwood supporters, I'm happy to.
Oh, mate, you fit right in. Now what we'll do is, everybody, if you haven't read if you haven't read Charlie's stuff on the Raw, it is first class. So what we'll do is we'll put a link on the show notes in the notes here, but we'll also put one on the Facebook page as well too, so you can go on and have a look at it. Hey, as an Essendon supporter, you'd be pretty happy with a bit of a transitional period. Let's be honest. The truck rutting time was an absolute shitstorm.
Oh,
at least now you've got some sort of resemblance of team.
I disagreed with the way that we handled truck, because it's like what's going on at Carlton at the moment, where they're saying get rid of us. And I think that we didn't pay him enough respect, but I agree that the change needed to be made, because a moment from last year sticks out to me where Nick Hind was just coming off the ground and Truck was like, don't do this, and Nick Hind was not receptive to the feedback at all, and that clearly indicated to me, albeit from a completely uneducated gaze, that that he'd lost the players, basically. And when you've lost the players, you can't really afford to be a coach anymore. Yep. And I agree with bringing in Brad Scott. I'm glad we didn't get Alistair Clarkson, because not because I have anything against Clarko, but I just don't think he would have been very good for the Bombers. I think he's lost a yard or two of coaching ability, basically. And it is pretty hard to spend $1 million. Thank you, Jamie. But not that I would. If you've got a spare mill, I'd be happy to take it off your hands. Wait, hello?
No, I'm here.
Oh, cool.
Sorry, I just had a bit of double. I've got a bit of double audio going on. No, I agree. Look, it's, I think that J-Dog's online, so he's already on here as well too. I think, look, Essendon, I think, was a good choice. Probably the choice that you need, a bit of hard love to be delivered your way. How it's going to play out, I'm not too sure. I think that you've uncovered, when I say uncovered, Langford down forward has been magnificent for you.
Oh, yeah. No.
But you haven't uncovered him. He's been there for a while, but it's just sometimes out of the necessity, out of the fire, you sometimes get the nature tends to bloom, something that you didn't expect. And I think he has bloomed exceptionally well this year. So there's one there. And once again, the form of Darcy Parish has been very, very good, but we're going to get into him very, very shortly because I want some there's been about a wonderful Darcy Parish that I want to ask you about in a moment. But before we do that, let's go and have a look at the ladder. I want your opinion on this, Mr. Keegan, because it is going to be an interesting sort of ladder rolling now. I think I can see Moses standing at the top of the AFL ladder and parting the Red Sea between the top four and the remainder of the eight. And I'm also looking at towards the bottom as well too. So Collingwood at the top, again, 32 points. Only had one loss for throughout the year, which has been sensational. You've got my mob, the D's, Brisbane and Port Adelaide making up the top four. Then you've got St Kilda, who had a massive trip up over in Adelaide over the weekend. The Western Bulldogs have hit some form. Geelong stumbled against Richmond. Who would have seen that coming? Quite a number of people did, but I didn't, I must admit. I didn't think that they'd be beaten that badly. Adelaide, probably the smoky so far that I would be saying looking at this season. They're just performing sensationally. Would it be above expectations? I don't think so. I think they finished the year off pretty well last year, and now they're getting a little bit of that reward, and the Darren Burgess factor cannot be underestimated. Drop out of the 8, I think, for the first time this year. Your mob, Essendon, Fremantle, all on 16 points. Carlton on 18 because of that draw at the start of the year. Richmond on 14, Sydney and GWS on 12, and then you've got just bottom of the barrel, North Melbourne on 8 points, West Coast and Hawthorn playing out for the Harley Reid Cup at this moment. Charlie, your thoughts and opinions on the ladder. What can you see, the movers and shakers? Is that a true reflection of what the ladder would be, or do you need a little bit more time to figure out whether the 8 is set?
I don't think there'll be a huge amount of change. I think Adelaide will continue to go up and St Kilda will continue to go down. No offense to Ross Lyon, but he's done a really good job. Sorry, I'm just laughing at Craigie Jones saying so class.
Say how you feel.
But I think Ross defense doesn't win premierships. We saw that at Freo. We saw that at St Kilda the first time round, where Alistair Clarkson rode on the coattail. Not Alistair Clarkson, sorry. Ross Lyon rode on the coattails of Grant Thomas and what was the other guy at Freo? Not Mark Neal.
Mark Harvey.
Mark Harvey, yeah, there we go. So like because of that, Mark Harvey and Grant Thomas did the good work, and Ross Lyon just came in and like, you know what, we're going to make a grand final, and I think he's done okay at St Kilda. I just don't think where they are at the moment is an accurate reflection of where they will be, which is the edge of the 8.
So you reckon they're going to make the edge of the 8? Now, which edge are we talking about? The above edge or the below edge? Come on, make a big call now, Charlie. This is where you can put your reputation on the line. This is where the big calls are made.
Well, I mean, I'm calling it now. I'm saying he's not going to make the finals. He's gonna struggle come the back half of the year. The Saints struggled last year, and nothing has fundamentally changed. If anything, everything has gotten worse for St Kilda. They're going to get Max King back in, but it's going to be a rough 3 to 4 weeks while he integrates with the new setup. And the other people I think who will move up are the Adelaide Crows. I think they've been playing really, really well.
How good's their forward line? Look, is technically just a form that you probably didn't see coming a couple of years ago. Do you remember when they put him and Charlie Dixon like side by side on that shot with their shirts off? It doesn't really matter because I'm absolutely killing it at the moment. We're going to mention him later on.
Yeah,
everything. They're Jordan Dawson. Like, what could you expect from a guy who's come over from Geelong?
Sydney.
Promoted him to captain. He's got to be all Australian.
100%.
I don't think anybody would have seen coming. I didn't. I think supporters saw that as well.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think short of the All-Australian ruckman, pretty much any position is open to Jordan Dawson in in the AFL. And while I vehemently did not agree with Tex and his words before he was suspended at the end of last year, then I think he's played as good as can be expected of a 34-year-old. In however many seasons he's played.
Well, if I was still playing that good at 30, 34, 35, I still would have kept going. But you can only dominate the competition for so many years before you have to give somebody else a go. Hey, Charlie, a couple of things have come in on the chat as well too, and it's the usual suspects are on board. Craigie Jones has said Sack Clarkson, that's been thrown around. Sack Timo has been throwing around as well. Sack Ratton as well coming in too. Apparently, Jamie the J-Dog, he's online. He's just sitting back enjoying the show as he normally does. Has asked this question. Who is Melbourne playing this week? Another bottom 4 team? Well, I don't think he's actually looked at the fixture. We're playing Port Adelaide. So, yes, we are playing another
bottom 4 team.
This is a guy who wanted to sack the coach every night for the last 5.5 seasons. So, yes, we're playing Port this week, J-Dog. Sack Ross the Toss has come in. Essendon's only chance, you like this one, Jamie, again. Essendon's only chance of putting 4 quarters together is cutting a sandwich. King for the Coleman, Ralph for the Brownlow. I want to have a chat about him. Tex will go back to his usual shittiness. Ted is a Gronk. Sack Voss. Everybody's sacking every coach under the sun right now.
Just sack them all. Make me the head.
I'm knocking over West Coast as a club-defining win. Sack Goody. You know what? Every coach that wants to get sacked are all the winning ones at the moment. We're not going to sack Goody. I did ask the question about him a little bit last week because I was a little bit suspect in the fact that we didn't throw the magnets around, especially when Petty didn't go back. But that's another story for another day. Now, one of the things that we like to do on the show is we love to spin the magnets. We love to spin the magnets. So I'm going to ask you, I always ask my co-host with the most, what would you like to start with, Charlie? Would you like to start with the votes or would you like to get someone dragged?
Let's go with the votes. I'm feeling in a positive mood today. So let's,
You're feeling in a positive mood now after 13 minutes. Okay, awesome. For the first 13 minutes, everybody, it was just all negative. So this is where we start. All right, let's hear it.
3 votes.
All right. 3 votes. First and foremost, before I get into mine, anything that you wanted to raise, something that, really caught your eye, went, that was awesome over the week?
Let's see. Well, Adelaide beating St Kilda, tops, really liked it.
Tops.
And I thought, I actually low-key rated the decision of North Melbourne not to boo Jason Horne-Francis. I understand that it was a negative, it's a very emotional thing, but I'm not going to hold it against a 18.
Emotional, damn it!
Yeah, exactly. For feeling a bit homesick, and I think good on North Melbourne for not being dicks about it. And
well, they had to play in Tasmania, so probably that was enough punishment as Horny Francis did. And no need for the ice baths because it was cold enough down there as well. I just love Horny Francis. I got to see him a little bit more this year playing because no one watched, because they're playing for a team that's winning, so they're actually broadcast on TV. I love the cut of his jib, if you mentioned a little bit earlier as well too. So the Port supporters, I'm not blowing smoke up his ass. I just love the way socks up, plays football like I used to play football. Hard and force, Richie. Hard and force. A couple of things that I wanted to point out that I loved that deserved to get
3 votes
over the weekend was first and foremost Jack Darling. Now, I know this guy's copped it for probably the last couple of years. He didn't want to play because of COVID, etc. Go back to that grand final where he dropped everything under the sun. You know where I'm coming from. But on the weekend, I don't know if you know, but Jack Darling played knowing he had an arm injury. What he didn't know was that arm was broken.
Yeah.
Continued to go out there, strapped it up, and if you can see some of the footage of him running around, he was in that much pain. I wouldn't have been able to deal with it. I know you would have been, Charlie, because you're hardcore. I know Jamie the J-Dog would have passed out just thinking about it because he's a softie. But for what he had to do, that's damn ballsy. That's got nuts to go ahead and do that. So, Jack Darling, he's got a massive rig, and he went out there and did something that I don't think many people would have been able to do. They would have been crying to mummy a long time ago. And I'm looking at Wallis.
Yeah, particularly when you're down by that much as well. Like it wasn't like it was a close game and he was digging deep to find that extra reserve of energy. It's that West Coast had already used the sub for Jermaine Jones, who broke his nose. And Jack Darling didn't want the club to be one short on the bench, so he just gritted his teeth and dealt with it. And you could see that he was in a lot of pain. And although Tom, I don't think you can really count a record intercepts when it's been equalled by Stephen May and a whole bunch of other people as
well. Thank you very much, Charlie. That's what we want to give it. Give it to the listeners. Give it to them if they're giving us something dodgy on the chat. All right, so I love that. Now, the other thing I've noticed is the streak. Now, we're not talking Helen DeMaco type of stripping here back in the 81 grand final. We're talking about the streaks of the top four at the moment. If you ever look at the top four teams, Collingwood, they've won their last 5. Melbourne have won their last 4. Brisbane have won their last 6. Port Adelaide have won their last 6. Look, we're not talking about teams who is scraping across 1 or 2 wins here and there. They are putting together some big blocks. Now, that can be a combination of really good form and obviously being able to beat who you've got in front of you. It's as simple as that. You get on the streak. But I think some of the teams like the Norths and the Hawthorns have really dropped down the standard of maybe a couple of those wins.
Yeah.
So they are – look, you got to bank your wins early. You want to try and lock in that top 4 spot. And those top 4 teams, they are the best top 4 teams in it. And they probably will be the top 4 towards the end of the season. I think the only team that I can see in there at the moment is the Western Bulldogs. And I still think there's an issue with Geelong. There's just a few things at the moment that aren't clicking, and if they drop a couple, it's going to be harder for them to get back. And I can see once again there is already a 1-game gap between the top 4 and everybody else. There will be at least a 2-game for one team, either Melbourne or Port this weekend, so it's going to be a lot harder. But those 4 teams are playing cracking football at the moment, and will probably be the top 4 towards the end of the season.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Like, I understand that the AFL wants any given Sundays where any team can beat any other team.
Yep.
Although, if you want a good tip, I reckon Gold Coast are a pretty good chance to get over Brisbane this weekend. Because I do not rate how Brisbane were able to get over the line against the Bombers. So if you're down in your tipping competitions at work or whatever, tip the Suns. They'll win. Don't quote me on that, but
you've gone too early on 1 week at a time. We'll get to that, all right? Just bank those thoughts. But that's the type of stuff that we deliver here at Lace Out, because it's how you want your footy. Lace out. And lace out. Exactly right. The other thing that I wanted to highlight is, now we normally talk about the footy, but it was Mother's Day, and happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Happy, beautiful Mother's Day to my wife, Narelle, my amazing mum, Dana, mother-in-law, Kath. But I don't know if you had a chance to see this, and we'll put a link up in the socials and also in the show notes. Julie McCreary. Did you have a chance to see Julie McCreary address the Collingwood team before the game on the weekend?
No, I didn't, but I do rate Bo McCreary. You know, he's a weekend warrior that somehow managed to make it to the big time, and he's not as controversial as his counterpart Jack Ginnivan, but he just has a good hard crack at footy, and that's how a small forward should play.
Well, Mum had a good hard crack at the pre-match address as well too, and you just sit there and it was just awesome. And I'm really happy. Like, we give Collingwood a bit of stick because that's what Collingwood for, but they did that really, really well. So we'll drop a link in the show notes. Have a look at it because it'll just make you smile, and that's what I love about footy. So well done, guys. You know what, buddy?
Haley off, Ellingworth on. Bloody weak as piss.
Oh, we gave this team a pump up about 5 minutes ago, and we're talking about Jack Darling. But could West Coast potentially have another 6 changes this week?
Yeah.
Is this the worst injury crisis that you've ever seen?
Well, they're talking about like letting West, I remember round 2 or whatever, they were saying, oh, we're going to need to bring in NGA players into our waffle side. And it's just like,
I haven't got enough data for a waffle side, let alone any type of side at the moment.
No, and I don't like. It is one of the worst injury crises that I've seen. Like, I don't remember a time in my life. I'm 30 later this year for perspective, and I don't remember a time in my life where both Fremantle and West Coast were so bad. And but yeah, I think the AFL is going to need to consider reinstituting that system they had during COVID, where you had like a list of 20 players or whatever, and you could just pull from them. But even West Coast won't be able to pull from them because
they're all injured.
Yeah, exactly. They're just running out of. They'll run out of people in WA. Soon you'll see Mark McGowan having to strap up the boots and start playing.
He'll only play if he gets the grand final again. Let's be honest. And if he can have the Ford 50 all to himself. Now, The Bad Moon on the Rise. Great song, but seriously, the number of moonlighting, a.k.a. ass flashes that we saw over the weekend. When was the last time that you saw the Cheeks out 2 games in a row? There was moonlighting at the MCG and there was moonlighting at the SCG. So it's kicked off with Luke Jackson, 2021 Melbourne Premiership player, having the best game of his career at the Fremantle Dockers, getting dacked. I'll tell you what, it's not bad getting dacked, but the fact that he actually went and slotted the goal on the run with his socks hanging around halfway down his cheeks. So it was a half mooner rising. And then you see Aaron Cadman gets the jocks pulled down on the boundary.
Yeah.
How shocking was it the fact that he pushed the player down who did it? It might have been McCreary who did it.
It was Nathan Murphy who pulled the jacks down.
The same at Collingwood. All right.
They all have stupid haircuts.
And headbands.
Yeah.
And he got the free kick for pushing. The umpire's got no idea. He's absolutely dacked the bloke and he gets the free kick for pushing. Like, no.
Yeah. I'm gonna be on the side of the umpires in this. I think the umpire was in the wrong angle. Like he couldn't see the pants getting pulled down.
Or could it have been the glare off his white ass that was killing him at the time? He's never saw what happened.
I mean, I'm reminded of I'm a Sydney sider, unfortunately, and I was awkwardly reminded of a situation with John Hopewade back in the 90s.
Hoppy. Check your prostate, ladies. Old Hopper.
And I was just thinking, if they choose to make this a thing, then like I was watching Access All Areas, and like I think that if it continues to happen, I think players will start to get fines. Like you can't pulling someone's dacks down once. Fine, you need to grab onto something, but
that's why his pants fell down.
Yeah, and if you do that, but if it keeps on happening, it's like that shirt front thing that happened a few years ago with jumper punches. You need to if it keeps on happening, you need to stamp it out because someone somewhere is going to take offence, and then then they'll be held to pay basically.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those things that the AFL need to keep their eye on. Whether it's blue, brown, green, just keep your eye on it. Because, we don't want it happening again. But it was a bit of a shock. And can we get rid of these double headers on Fridays?
Oh, I mean
Thursdays. Just get back to Thursday night footy.
I think the logic was they were I watched the Suns game on Friday. And I was tired by the end of it. I was just like, it's 11 o'clock. I'm too old for this.
You should be going out at this time of the night when those days are closing off.
Nah. COVID has turned me into a misanthrope.
That's all right. But yeah, so there's the Magnus for this week. Votes dragged. And by the way, before we finish, anything that you wanted to mention, Charlie, you
want to drag this week, but from the previous week, Junior Rioli elbowing Jordan Ridley in the head, using the Bart Simpson defense, where he says Jordan Ridley ran into Junior Rioli's elbow. Doesn't sit right with me, Ridley got concussed, and that should at least be a 3-week suspension in my mind. And he only got 2. But look, that's just my pet horse or hobby horse. I just think that if
pet horse, hobby horse, it's not an equestrian podcast, Charlie.
I mean, my mum has horses.
A high horse. You want to be a high horse?
Yeah, my high horse, my soapbox. I just it didn't sit right with me, is all, because you don't stick your elbow out at that angle running past someone. And admittedly, it was the Bart Simpson defense, Craig, That's the Bart Simpson defense where he goes, if I swing at my arms like this, and if you run into them, it's your own fault.
It's one of those things that no matter what you do, there's always going to be someone with a direction. And look, we go to the tribunal. We talked about the Van Rooyen one last week. There's going to be more people go to the tribunal probably this week as well too.
Well, I'll tell you who is happy with all the tribunal cases.
Without Michael Christensen, let's be honest. That's why it is. All right. Hey, journey to the draft. I want to have a chat about journey to the draft. So last week, our guy Jacob Grant was in action. Young Guns versus Vic Country. Kicked a goal, got a bit of it, but then he was moved to, figure this, right? They moved into the back line when they were about 45 points down in the third quarter, moved into the back line, and then they've come out and lost by 3 points. So he didn't see any of the ball. They thought, we'll change it up a bit because maybe the ball's going down the back line a bit. We can get to see a bit of him. And the midfielders decided to do a little bit more, and the ball went to them. So all we need to know is just waiting for an announcement with the Vic Country team for the 2023 National Carnival. So fingers crossed for him. And I want to give another little shout out just to someone completely different. Austin Harris, Aussie Harris, is playing for the East Keeler Football Club. My boys, if you haven't heard before, I am a 370 game superstar, club legend, and life member of EKFC. And he played a game again for the Essendon VFL team, and he's been doing all right. So fingers crossed as we work towards the draft. He's only 21 years of age and can light up a forward line. He's been doing it at EK. He's been going all right at Essendon. Fingers crossed he gets a chance as well too. So
I've been chatting to Tom about him, Tommy Roker.
How good was he a couple of weeks ago, Charlie?
He was very good.
I know, he told me about 10 times.
He was. Aussie Harris. He might be a little bit too small for Essendon, but he definitely has the ability to go up to that next level.
Yep.
At AFL, and I hope he's given the opportunity. Because he's living with Red Dog, as Tommy told me. And they seem to be having a lot of fun.
Yeah, to his dad for quite a fair bit. Errol, absolute gentleman, spoke to him for about half an hour tonight. 100% absolute gun bloke. So fingers crossed, he's coming. Actually, might be coming down to Melbourne this week too.
Ooh, that'll be interesting.
Dream time, or going to watch EK. Top of the table clash.
It's just a matter of getting your name in front of people, like when you're at the Gold Coast, there's a lot of these academy players that aren't able to put their name out there. Like I know this year they're going to have Rogers, Reed and Walter. They're all probably going to go in the top 15. So Gold Coast better ante up the picks for that. But
it's going to be tough, isn't it? They've just got a lot of, they've got a good, you know what? Good on them. I have no issue with them having that whatsoever as well too. I think that they're places, and it's seen over the last few weeks what they've been serving up has been brilliant, and they just want to maintain it. Like if Jamie was on here, he'd be going, but we've seen it all before. You know what? We've seen it all before, but there's just something different at the moment. Like they're mature bodies, and Matt Rowell, my goodness.
Oh, he is.
Start with him. Where can we start with him? But we'll have a look at that when we get to the games very, very shortly. What's another one of the segments that we have on this brilliant podcast, Charlie, that you get excited for every single week?
I always like the contract news, talking about different players that have signed up, because as an Essendon supporter, frequently it's early in seasons that the rest of the year becomes a write-off. So, we start focusing on the next year.
Are you talking about a little bit of this?
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money,
Dollar.
You're right. When you get into a bit of the contract news, there's not much going on at the moment. They usually sign them up in the first couple of weeks. We have a bit of a lull, but there's a couple of things that I wanted to ask you about. And the first one actually has to do with one of your players in relation to Darcy Parish. Now, it was brought up on the Sunday football show by Matthew Lloyd, club legend, who said, well, maybe Parish is out of contract. Probably got enough midfielders at the moment. Could we or do we need to maybe go towards trading him out for a name brand centre half back.
Yeah, from Matthew Lloyd was the one that has been that made that argument. Look, I love Darcy Parish. He's a great midfielder. But I think, when you consider the context of the 2015 draft, like we'd selected Zachy Merritt 2 years before that. We selected Andy McGrath a year after that. And they're all similar sized midfielders. I honestly think that Parish is surplus to requirements. So it won't be the end of the world if he leaves for like Geelong or something. Actually, it will be the end of the world if he leaves for Geelong because they won't pay him enough.
But he doesn't fit into their age bracket of over 30. So he won't go there. But I know you say he's surplus, but answer this for me from an Essendon supporter's perspective, all right? Is he better? Who would you rather have, Shield or Parish?
Parish.
Okay. McGrath or Parish?
Well, McGrath can play in the back line. So.
Oh, okay. There's a caveat there, is it? You brought him up, so I'm just asking.
No, that's fair. Like, look, I would have McGrath over Parish because I think he's hard done by. He's a better backman than he is a midfielder. Because in the midfield, he just had a tendency to whack it on the boot and get it forward at all costs. But in the back line, he's more considered with his approach and he's more of a run and gun style player. So I'd probably have McGrath over him simply because he's a better leader and he's more defensively accountable. Darcy Parish is not very defensively accountable.
Okay.
Like Tommy Roker said, McGrath absolutely had his way with Charlie Cameron. And absolutely shut him down. And I remember in 2017 where we had McGrath on Eddie Betts, and Eddie Betts was still good back then, and absolutely smashed him as a 19-year-old. But I think the problem is Parish, Merritt, Shield, they're all similar midfielders, and we need a point of difference. Like Setterfield brings something different. Stringer, when he's in the centre clearance, brings something different. I think it's incumbent on the coach to work out how to best use those assets. And I mean, whatever deal that another side comes up with, the Bombers can afford to match. They've got $3 million in spare cap space or something. I've seen
$3 million.
Mm-hmm. Like over several years.
Still got to go to Essendon. Well, that's the only bad thing about that deal.
Wow, it's better than Melbourne,
You can say that as much as you want, mate. You know it's not true. Well, he's leading your handballs. He's got the most disposals. He's got the most clearances. He has got the most clangers. But if you're getting the ball more than most people, you're going to be making more clangers. So
that's true, but I'd prefer they go to our guys rather than,
And look, hey, he could be an All-Australian this year. You could trade out an All-Australian, which is something that Essendon would probably do. You never know. You never know.
Well, I mean, the thing about Parish is, he might be leading in all those things, but he butchers the ball so much. I would prefer someone that gets the ball, 3/4 as many times as Parish does, but he's better than, he's better at, he's better at, Merritt is really good at that sort of short 45-degree kick there where he's just, running one way and the ball goes the other way, basically. And, I'm still holding out hope that the unicorn Nick Cox can become an inside midfielder.
And you got Hobbsy as well too, who I reckon he's got something. He just needs a game. Like, you've just got to play him. Young kid. All right. So, a few other things, Charlie, that I want to talk to you about, and all the listeners, my lace outlaws out there. Sean Darcy, currently.
He will go to Geelong, I reckon. They need a ruckman, and I don't think Freo I don't think Sean Darcy and Luke Jackson can play effectively in the same side.
I think they can. They just haven't worked out how yet.
That's true.
Jackson been playing more of an on-baller. He's probably played his best 2 games at Freo over the last couple of weeks.
That's true, but
he was virtually best on ground as well too, which we'll have a chat about a little bit later on. So there's something there. Sava Radaglia, Brisbane is looking at him at the moment, apparently.
I mean, I want the Bombers to go after the big Sav, We
I reckon he's... I'd like him at centre half back as well too. I was watching him on the weekend. He's got some good hands. He clunks nicely as well too. Miles Bergman, the Port Adelaide boy, who was couldn't get a game a few weeks ago, came on as the sub.
Mm-hmm. Good old anti-metric.
He's played some cracking footy as well too. So there's a bit of interest in him as well too. Apparently, Richmond think that they're in a decent position for Harry Himmelberg.
I mean, well, Richmond have the issue of they need to go to free agency. Where they they've got cap space, but they don't have any picks. They gave up multiple first rounders to get Hopper and Taranto in, and I mean they're probably going to beat Essendon this weekend, as much as it pains me to admit. But they haven't delivered on their potential, particularly Hopper, who's injured and injured one of his legs, so he's hopping now. I'm not apologising for that pun.
I was just looking for that. And you've also got Tom De Koning. This is a guy who people were saying was $1 million man at the start of the season, now can't even get a game. There's something going on there with that. Like that's too much of a talent not to be getting a go. And Mason Redmond.
Give him whatever he wants.
A little bit. Just pay him whatever he wants.
Yeah, give him whatever he wants. He should be captain. The Red Dog. I mean, if he wants to go to Adelaide, that's fine. I don't think he will because he bleeds red and black. But he's a very good player and a restricted free agent. So the Bombers are going to match whatever deal comes up for him.
Which doesn't normally happen all that often. And just probably the last one to sort of come out of it is Denver Granger Barras. A few clubs looking at him too. Still can't get a game with Hawthorn. I went and saw Hawthorn live on the weekend, and how he can't get a game. He mustn't have had the photos the coach doesn't want anybody to see, or he's just on the nose with.
I mean, I rate Sam Frost as a key defender. You
don't actually. If he played for Essendon, you'd say the complete opposite. Because if he plays for your team, there is a thing called frost ball, and there's a reason why it's called frost ball.
I mean, if your defenders don't know what you're going to do, the forwards on the other side definitely don't know what you're going to do. So,
half the time we didn't know what was going on, and that's half the time we went to the footy because it was nothing better than
nothing better than frost ball.
Exactly right. So, hey, do you know what's almost as good as splashing the cash with a bit of "Here Comes the Money"?
Mm-hmm.
Bags. How could you not like bags? We've got bags. We've got a bag this week.
No. I mean,
it's your mob. Tell me how you felt with this one. The magnificent Big Joe kicking 6, half a dozen snagoramas against your mob, the Essendon Bombers. That's got to leave a real
bad taste. Yeah.
Your medical team couldn't get him up to scratch.
I mean, osteitis pubis is a weird injury and it's very common with people that height. It's degradation of the pubic joint that joins the two hip bones in hominids.
I love our audience, but that's probably a little bit too technical for our audience.
No, all good. Look, I'm glad that he's playing good footy at Brisbane. It hurts to see him go. He was one of my favourite players when he was playing at Essendon. And, when he kicked his fourth goal, I'm like, I said a lot of words that are not necessarily appropriate for, kids that'll be up at this time of night.
But you knew that when he kicked his sixth, it wasn't the fact that he kicked 6 against Essendon. It was the fact that you got to hear the theme song on late hour on Monday night live. A bit of bags. But that's what we love. We love bags of footy. We love bags of goals, and that's what we love about AFL footy is players that.
Oh yeah,
I think he's a better player once he gets out of 50. Once he gets out of that 50 and he's roaming, it leaves Hipwood to be open a little bit more. And his work around the ground. Last month has been really good. I'd say the last month, probably even a little bit longer than that, but his last month has been magnificent.
Well, if he's aiming to kick it to another player, perfect kick. If he's aiming to kick it a goal, 50-50 at best.
That's why he's great from outside 50 because he kicks through the ball.
Yeah, no, and that's important. When generating the required amount of force for being a like to get a good shot on goal. And like I'm a little bit disappointed that we don't see as many bags as we used to, but defenses have gotten better and small forwards have gotten better, so there's more.
There's no incentive for forwards to kick goals.
Yeah,
There needs to be an incentive. An extra 2 points if you kick over 100 would be my recommendation for the win.
Well, I mean, I reckon super goals as well. Like, you remember how?
No. None of that super goal bullshit. Just if you kick over 100 points, you get an extra 2 points. Imagine that. Imagine, like I said last week, imagine you got down to the last game, you were 2 percentage points behind, but you had to win by over 100. Oh,
I think that would lead to a lot of blowouts.
And the other team had to win full stop. So one team had to win, and the other team had to win by over 100 and get that extra 2. Oh, it would be.
Rugby union do something similar. In fact, they like if you win by a certain margin, you get additional points in the Super Rugby, and I think I don't necessarily agree with encouraging blowouts, but I think there needs to be more done.
We're not encouraging blowouts. We're encouraging scoring. It's a different thing altogether. Don't worry. There's already blowouts occurring, and we haven't got something in place. That's because of the last 3 teams. Imagine winning a 19th and the 20th. That talent is going to get in thinner than Jamie Wallis's hairline.
they just need other pathways, and like I think the issue is still 60% of all draftees come from Victoria.
Yeah.
And Victorian's the second biggest state, only to New South Wales, just quietly saying. But
what have they got? They've got a bridge, a beach, an opera house. There's not much else.
Big harbour. We've got a big harbour.
Oh, they got water.
Yeah. Well,
unaffordable real estate.
I don't know. Melbourne's catching up in terms of unaffordable real estate.
Hey, you know what, Charlie? I want to have a chat to you. We want to have a really nice little whip around because it's time for the scoreboard. Let's have a look at last week's games and let's do a nice little whip around. It all started off on Friday night. We mentioned this a little bit earlier on with 2 games. We had the Richmond Geelong game, which Richmond won. I didn't pick it. I don't know if you saw it coming. They were back to the Richmond of old. They were chaotic and bold. Just the way Dusty was back to not Dusty-like, but Dusty up forward, if you know what I mean. And I think if he can do that every week, they're a big chance. Once Lynch comes back in, I still don't think that they're top 4 calibre, but if they can sneak their way into the 8,
I think they're going to surprise
a little bit too far back at this stage.
I mean, as long as Essendon beat Richmond this weekend, I am happy. I don't care what happens.
I reckon if you beat them this week, that's it. That they're done.
Yeah. No. Well, I mean, even during their premiership years, they always came into form after Dreamtime at the G.
Yep.
And like I think I think part of that win was attributable to Geelong just not having anyone. Like Danger did his hammy, and they had something like 9 missing. But you can only beat, like you said earlier in this one, you can only beat who's in front of you, and to beat even a weakened Geelong is still impressive. I wish Essendon beat Geelong, but 8 goals to Tom Hawkins resulted.
But it wasn't even like that. It was at no stage did Geelong look like they were going to get back into that. Cameron was well held. Hawkins did nothing. When the 4th highest rated player on the ground was Jonathan Segler, Geelong weren't like all their, when we say guns, just didn't fire. Tom Atkins was their number 1 player, but if you go all the way down to the bottom of the list, look, it was thin. It was very thin when you have a look at, okay, well, who was next? Who else do we look at? Oh, okay, Jai Clark, he only came off the bench. Ollie Dempsey didn't do anything. Mark O'Connor, nothing. Zach Tui, Jake Collar-Jasny. So when your backline players are hardly doing anything, they're not even getting their hands on the ball, which is very un-Geelong. Like Ollie Henry, I thought he was looking okay at the start and then sort of eased out a little bit after that. But yeah, they were smacked from pillar to post, and Noah Bolter is Frostball for
Oh,
Richmond.
yeah, no, he's Well, the other thing I would point out as well, Richmond actually had an older side than Geelong, so this was like the first time in several hundred games that the Geelong were facing a side that was older than them. So there is a bit of attrition there with the Cats, and particularly facing Richmond with their legions of nuffies at the G.
Because they don't go to Marvel, do they?
No, can't go to Marvel. That's for everyone else. I thought Richmond did well, but I think Geelong would be worried. So Essendon have got to face them down at GMHBA in a couple months. So got to watch out for that.
And they've got a stack of games at GMHBA, which is the most unique ground to play on.
No, like skinniest ground. It's like, I remember where they were talking about Matt.
It reminds me, if anyone's ever played in the Eastern District Football League, has played at West Coburg's ground, which is like grounds put end on end. You know what I'm talking about. They've got straight wings. You have to kick under a tree. It's just totally unique. What wasn't unique was what we saw on that night as well too, was the Gold Coast Suns not winning, but winning so convincingly against West Coast. We know that they had their injuries. But there's a guy who's when he first started, he was like a bat out of hell, got injured, was very lean for a couple of years. He's back to how he started when he first started. We're talking about Matt Rowell. His last month of football, you've been top 5 players in the league. And it's just not his inside beastiness that he's been bringing, but it's been a bit of that outside run, and his delivery into the forward 50 has been sublime. Tommy Roker must be, I don't know how he wouldn't be sleeping on his stomach after watching Gold Coast play, let's be honest.
He was magnificent. It's not that his inside game has fallen away. It's that he's improved on his outside game, where he had 29 disposals and 17 tackles. That's 3 shy of the record, which is 20 held by Rory Laird, who's just a tackling machine. And I think I heard it described earlier today with another podcast where they mentioned how Noah Anderson is a sheepdog, and he just keeps on going again and again at the he won't ever be out of the contest. He will always be in a relevant position for the contest.
He reminds me of a greyhound running after the rabbit. And all of that rabbit's moving, he's following it, and his eyes are locked on. You look at Charlie Ballard. He was almost decapitated by Van Rooyen if you go to the tribunal last week. He's had 8 contested marks. That just shows how there was absolutely nothing in that the week before.
Oh, no, I agree. Like,
what they did was just sublime. King comes out and kicks 4. Noah Anderson, like we were talking about people who are looking at All-Australian years. He is a smoky for an All-Australian. He has been sensational this year. And once again, I keep saying it, they have got one of the best captains running around, Jared Witts. Look, this guy was out for virtually a season last year. He's come back and he's just picked up for where he's gone. David Swallow, the most capped player at the Suns there, I believe. Like, they are humming along nicely, and I think, we want to see more of it. We're like, okay, we know how everyone else is going, but how's the Suns going? I think there's always, this is finally where they want to be. And could you just imagine if Rankin was still there?
Oh, yeah.
If Jared Lyons was like, but there's names that if they were much better would they be, but do you need to go through that pain to see what's coming out at the end? And I think they're doing really well.
Yeah, coming good. I think the other thing that people aren't really paying attention to is they finished 12th last year. So that means they get the middle 6 fixture this year. And the other issue on top of that is up until this point, they've played Brisbane twice every year for the Q Flash or whatever they're calling it. And as a result of that, they those are basically 2 games that you could write off. They weren't going to win. They might win on Saturday or Sunday whenever they're playing, but and I think the Suns have. It's a work in progress. It could still all go to shit, but. But
I have a little bit more faith in them at the moment. Am I totally convinced? No. I have a little bit more faith.
Oh, yeah.
West Coast, look, there's not really much we could say about them. They are.
I mean,
if you were the number one draft pick, Harley Reid, right now, you got to choose from Hawthorn, West Coast, or North. Can you just say I'll come back next year?
Well, I mean, they did. Chad Wingard, of all people, was confounded by this issue when he was drafted. He had the option. GWS had said, "We want to take you," but Chad Wingard said, "No, I don't want to leave South Australia."
Yep.
And Port were already pretty bad at that point as well, so it was pretty easy for him to move to Port. But I think Harley Reid. I mean, part of me is like West Coast. West Coast. Would you ever trade out of number one? That's a good question. I think
I would.
Year, like, I think you get 3 first-round picks for it. So
I don't think you get 3 first rounders. That's to get 3 first rounders for a first rounder. You might get 2 this year and 1 next year, maybe.
Oh yeah. No, that's what I mean. So you'd only get
3, or I don't know, but. If I was a club, after looking at what North did last year, North picked up the Sheasel and Wardlaw for 2 and 3. I think clubs who are down the bottom need more quality than you want 3 goodies, except some exceptional guy. Because you know what? After a couple of years, he'll do a
Jason Horn-Francis.
Yeah, exactly right.
Well, I mean, I don't think that would be an issue for Hawthorn or North because they're both in Victoria. I think the only instance in which that would become an issue is with West Coast.
We want West Coast to finish last. That's what we're saying.
Yeah. And I mean, like Damien Barrett on AFL.com.au, he has been saying a lot of, like, I know he's a controversial figure, but he's been saying he thinks Hawthorn will lose their first draft pick as a result of the investigation. But I think that's a big punishment. I think you need clear evidence of wrong.
It needs to be clear evidence.
Yeah, exactly.
Not like the Essendon saga. We opened up on that one now.
I agree. We took our licks, and fair enough. We deserve to be punished.
You took your licks, your shots, and everything else, let's be honest, Charlie. All right. Hey, Sydney versus Fremantle. Fremantle, I actually picked Sydney for this one because I thought there's no way Fremantle can go from the other side because there's been no suggestion that Fremantle can do anything so far this year. And if you hear the Duck from the Purple Rain podcast, I think he came out and said, my team are fucked. Excuse me. That was his exact words he said to me. And I excuse the language, but they were awesome. It was a really okay sort of contest, but Sydney, they've got no back line. So anything can get through there. And like I said, Sean Darcy clearly best on ground, but that Caleb Sarong, their best midfielder. I know they talk about Braceball a fair bit, but Sarong, I think, has leapfrogged him. I think he's a different type of player.
I think
he's just a footballer. Luke Jackson just does his thing, and Errol Goulden will win their best and fairest by the length of the runway 2 at Melbourne Airport. They haven't got much going for them at the moment, Sydney. They've got Callum Mills out again, injured, so he's not going to be around for a while with a calf. Yeah. Fremantle, the win they probably needed, and in this case, they really, really deserve. Like Caleb Sarong went at 660 metres gained.
As an inside midfielder, no.
That small, that's massive numbers. That's like going up and down that ground 4 times.
Yeah, and I've been to the SCG many times, and that is a tiny ground.
Yep.
And better than ANZ Stadium, because the surface is real messy in ANZ. Yep. But I think the issue the Swans have is the McCartan brothers are both concussed, and Dane Rampe has a history of doing really weird injuries to himself. Like there was a moment a few years ago where he tripped over the like chain link fence out the front of the SCG and broke his arm or something. Yep. But my thoughts are with the McCartan families because none of them have a very good history with concussions, and I hope they're both able to recover. And it was
and you know what's disappointing for Sydney? Like they were grand finals last year. The 26 year streak of grand final defeats is apparently still going. Where if you have a big loss in the grand final, your season's pretty much chopped up. They're not going to make finals, which will be a massive disappointment for them. I think they'll be the first team not to play finals after a grand final since I think the Bulldogs in 2016 into 17. And Fremantle, look, they're not going to be playing finals, but They want to try and get as much out of their season as they possibly can, but every Melbourne supporter wants them to lose every game under the sun because wherever they finish, we get their first draft pick. So it's like which Legion to Harley Reid is doing together.
I mean, for a moment there, it was looking like you would get Harley Reid.
Hey, it's not finished yet. There's plenty of weeks to go in the season. Unfortunately for North Melbourne, there are quite a few. I think there's 14.
Oh, man, I feel for North.
70 against Port Adelaide. We'll really whip through this one, but that was just a smashing.
Nothing to. Oh, the other thing is injuries as well. Like North had, I think about 4 injuries in that match. And like they don't have any depth. And to find a piece of good news for North Melbourne, you have to go to the reserve grade with Callum Coleman-Jones kicking 9 goals in the reserve grade. And getting like 165 fantasy points.
How can you not get a game?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, like Goldstein is still, even at 101, the best tap ruckman in.
He was the highest rated player on the ground.
Oh yeah,
on the weekend.
No, 100%.
Coaches votes. Zach Badu. He's spread from the contest, and he'd be going close to top 5 players in the league over the last month as well too.
Yeah.
Zerha keeps doing. He's like Zerha. He kicked 2, but I think it was more about his 18 disposals going at 77%. He's injured too, I think. So that's just the other one that they've got. So I think Clarkson's got. I think all this Hawthorn stuff that's going on. I don't think it's affecting him the way he's coaching, but I think it's just having an all-over effect. They just don't have. They just don't have the talent.
No. Like I think the problems that David Noble faced, Alistair Clarkson is facing right now. He had a sugar rush in the first 2 rounds where they were able to jag a couple wins off over West Coast and Freo. And now it's all the chickens are coming home to roost, basically. Then I don't know. Like I have a soft spot for North. They were my junior club. Wearing those scratchy woolen jerseys they used to have, North Ride Roos. I think the North Melbourne are in a world of hurt right now. And
even Nick Larkey, like 4 goals. I think he kicked the first 3 goals on the weekend. And imagine him at a. I think imagine him at St Kilda are okay. Essendon. Nick Larkey at Essendon.
He would have the ball dropped on him a lot. Like, we don't know how to kick to a lead.
Doesn't matter. But he's kicking 4 for North. What would he do at Essendon? Kick 10.
Exactly. Kick 10 every match.
They're in a world of hurt. And Port Adelaide have got a massive test coming up this week on Friday night against Melbourne.
But it's at the Adelaide Oval.
At the Adelaide Oval. Hawthorn Melbourne, I went to this game. Left halfway through the 3rd quarter. I had 2 kids who wanted to go home, and let's be honest, it was the worst half of football I've seen at a Melbourne game for quite a long time. Then they came out and kicked the first 5. I don't know what's going on here. We're in a bit of trouble because I was in the 7-Eleven across the road for the MCG. If anybody knows the 7-Eleven across the road for the MCG, I was talking to Hawthorn Sport. He goes, "You're going to smash us." I said, "Mate, you back from Melbourne. This is the type of game that we will lose." About an hour and a half later, those words were coming back to haunt me, but they dug themselves out of it. Look, Petrarca, Viney, Oliver, it was the same 3 as usual. Couple of things I don't want to focus on Melbourne because that's easy. Couple of things I noticed about Hawthorn. They are in a much better position than West Coast and North. They've got some cracking kids. Will Day, he shines. Jai Newcomb, brilliant. Lloyd Meek coming over from Fremantle has been good for them. I love what Mitch Lewis is doing. I love what CJ brings to the game. James Sicily, my goodness, you've got Sicily and Frost in the same team. It must be an absolute headache.
Well, one's going to get suspended anyway.
Sleeve. They're going to be all right. Cam McKenzie, there's some young names that I've not seen a lot of footy being played before. And at least they looked like they had a bit of structure. Like they just got blown away by a better team.
I trust
Melbourne might have put the cue in the rack for the halfway, for the first bit of the 3rd quarter. Then okay, we need to get back into it. But Melbourne did what Melbourne had to do. They had to win, as Jamie would say, a soft kill, low hanging fruit. But you know what? You have to play who you got to play. But I think the thing that came out of Melbourne was just the form of Trent Rivers. He had a bit of a slower start to the season, but his last few weeks been really good. And if you have a look at his chance, he had a shot from outside 50, went post line, went six rows back, which he flushed it beautifully as well.
He's a handy player. Get him in the guts, I reckon.
Yeah, they've tried him, and I think they're going to have to because Sparrow's out for a week, injured this week. So,
and I think Viney's good as well. Like he's like
he's the barometer.
No, exactly. And I think he's been through the hard times, so he definitely deserves to be going through the good times right now. And I'm glad that Melbourne have finally come good after 70 odd years.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Just keep rubbing that one in, Charlie Keegan. Appreciate it. Hey, your mob, Essendon, went down to the Brisbane Lions. Was looking pretty good at one stage, but then unfortunately, when you kick 6 goals 9, even though it was 9 goals 6, like they've had 15 scoring shots to 27. You go down by 42. It was the Joe Danaher show.
We should have lost that game by 100.
I don't know how often you have a player kick just as many goals as the entire team, and that's what he did. He was the number 1 ranked player on the ground, Cam Rayner. We talk about the Reg Dog as well too. He'd be winning your best and fairest this year, wouldn't he? He'd have to be.
He'd be in pole position, I'd expect.
Well too.
Because the thing about the Essendon voting system is it's very hard not to get votes as an Essendon. Like if you play all 22 games, it's very hard not to get.
So you do have participation medals as part of your play. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
The quality of the games that you play is that if the player who literally plays the most games will get a chance to win.
I mean, Redmond deserves it. He's been a heart and soul player, and although I reckon the Bombers have a few interesting cats in reserve. Patrick Voss, you can take this to the bank. He will kick as many goals on debut as weeks he will be suspended for. So kick 7 on debut, get suspended for 7 weeks.
Fantastic. We haven't had one of those for a while. Lavar Vidovic could be the last one that I could remember who was a little bit. Maybe Fraser Gehrig or Barry Hall was the last. Kick 7, out for 7. So you mentioned this bloke, the Red Dog. I don't think I've seen many games where a player has had 24 kicks, 6 handballs, 30 disposals, and went at 96, rounded off to 97% kicking efficiency or disposal efficiency. 568 metres gained, yet only picked up 2 votes. So I don't know what happened there from a coach's vote perspective, but I look at that and go, well, Joe Danaher's picking up 10. Ian McGrath must have done something a little bit more special because that's a great one.
Andy McGrath shut down Charlie Cameron, and I don't think that can be underestimated. The Bombers would have lost that game by so much more if Red Dog was on Charlie Cameron. I think, it was painful viewing because as soon as, looking about halfway through the second quarter, I was just like, yep, Bombers are going to lose this. Brisbane are peppering the goals. And even if we kick a few and somehow get the lead off them, we are going to lose this because Brisbane will start kicking goals in the second half. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what happens. And it frustrates me that I was right on this one, unfortunately.
Yep. That's good.
And
going to be an interesting one, Dreamtime this week, which we'll get into very, very shortly. Hey, another interesting game. I think we all saw this one coming. Carlton versus the Western Bulldogs. I know it was a 20-point margin, but it was just the way that game finished off. Like they kicked 6 in a row, Carlton. And you would have thought, hold on, here we go. This is what we've been looking for. It's just the doggies do what the doggies do. And
a goal and a half of footy is not going to win you many.
On the field, they are a tough unit to beat. And the interesting thing was it wasn't the Bont who dominated this game. It was someone with just as many syllables in Liberatore who, we talk about Jack Viney being the barometer. He is the barometer for the Western Bulldogs. When he's playing well, the team plays well. And Jason Johansson going back to halfback was probably the best. Well, I don't know why they try and make players into something that they're not. Put him to halfback and he does what he has to do and has an absolute blinder as well.
Oh, yeah. No, JJ is he's a very handy player. And, you can see that. He won the Norm Smith in 2016. And, he's a very and he's a very good run and gun player. And I think, I think him forward makes no sense. It made absolutely no sense to me. But I think Tommy is right when he said it is worrying for the Dogs. Because they did let the Blues back in that game, and Blues aren't a top 8 team this year.
Yeah.
Much as it pains the long-suffering supporters, they're not going to make finals as they're currently playing. They need some variance to their midfield. Paddy Cripps, what's his face?
Sam Walsh.
Sam Welsh is different. Chera, they're all the same. They don't bring anything different.
They're vanilla.
Yeah, exactly. They're vanilla.
Where's
They're
the
milk
chocolate? Where's the strawberry? Where's the Craig David in their midfield? Absolutely nowhere to be seen. Hey, one thing though. Now, Harry Mackay, his goal kicking has been putrid. If you were the coach, what would you do? Would you persist or would you drop him to try and get some form?
Who would you play in Harry Mackay's stead? Is my
Anybody else?
Go smaller then.
You've got to try something different. It's not working at the moment, and
I think you are right. I'd probably drop him. If only just because it's like, look, go back to the VFL, absolutely pummel some poor sod that is just a weekend warrior, and then come back, and then you'll have the confidence to. Yeah, exactly, Oscar McDonald, and you have the confidence to drop punts at goals. Stop taking snaps, for the love of God. Stop snapping.
He's so confident shot, he doesn't know what he's doing anymore. And the easiest thing, if you're a backman and he took a mark, you'd be going, "Hey, Harry, what are we doing? Check side? Are we doing a snap? Are we doing a boonana? Are we doing a boomerang? Are we doing a drop punt?"
Or better yet, tell him to kick on his left or right, whichever is his non-preferred foot, because he will more than likely kick accurately on that foot.
Shaker, and this is a number 3. Number 3 is a drop punt. Like, he's got no idea. It's like a raffle. It is a raffle. And it's really demoralising. But when you were talking about blowing some poor salt out of the water, that's what the Adelaide Crows did against St Kilda. On Sunday, 52 points. Like I said, I've said this many, many times, they sliced and diced Chen Kenichi style Iron Chef.
Oh, yeah.
Mid-2000s because they were sublime. They loved the Adelaide Oval. It was perfect conditions. Pressure. And when there's that much pressure, the diamonds are generated. And my goodness, Tex Walker, we spoke about him before. He had 5 shots, kicked 5.
I mean, fair enough. He's one of the best field kicks in the competition.
He's one of the best set shots, full stop.
Yeah, no, 100%. And although I do think Tommy is right when he says the Crows have no depth. Where, like, I was reading a stat and they said, like, the measure was how many games experience did a side lose due to injury, and the Crows were well out. With 0 games experience lost from their best 22 due to injury. And I think if one of their important players goes down, then they're going to struggle because there's not someone in reserve, particularly with their key defenders. If Nick Murray or Jordan Butts go down, then there's not really anyone else they have to replace them.
Probably throw Thilthorpe down there if they need to, but
yeah, Thorpedo.
Yeah. I haven't looked at that at the moment, but once again, don't worry about it whilst everything's going okay. But once a couple of pillars go down, the building does get a little bit weak at the knees. Yeah. But at the moment, they are magnificent. I will give a special shout out to Snags Higgins, number 3. He's averaging his best per average, almost 2 goals a game at the moment. So, for everything that's been going on at St Kilda, he's firing. He's the highest goal kicker at the moment too. So just keep doing. We have to keep doing Snags because we love what you're rolling out. And Collingwood, geez, at one stage they were in control, and then they did really push away towards the back end of the game too. They won this by 65 points. So
I mean, Mason
shot, but mate, nothing was stopping that.
Nothing
was stopping Jordan DeGoey. Nothing was stopping Coxie. They got cocked. GWS got coxed.
Yeah, no, they like the big American took 9 marks and kicked 2 goals.
9 marks, 24 hitouts.
You know, like
80%. That was the other bloke. 73%.
I think the only thing that will derail Collingwood this year is if Jordan De Goey takes the side on a mid-season trip to Bali.
Yep. I reckon there's no chance. So if they've got his passport locked away in a safety deposit box in a country that he'll never find. But yeah, they were. Once again, Cox was like, I hate to say it, he's actually, when he played a game like that, he goes all right.
Oh, yeah.
He goes all right when he gets the good ones, but if there's a shocker,
oh, they're really bad. He understands his limitations, and I think, you know, when he's asked to be the primary ruckman like he was on Sunday, he was pretty good, and you know, I thought I enjoyed it. And I don't want Collingwood to win because that'll take them to 16 flags, and you know, I like dunking on them for losing 27 grand finals. You know, so I don't want them to win, but Craig McRae deserves it. He's a very intelligent football coach. You know, he's
the right person for that club.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, I don't think he would succeed at
There's a lot of no names on that list. Well, if you ever look at their list, and when I say no names, respectfully, but when you look at names like Reef McInnes, Ash Johnson, Isaac Quaynor, even Jack Ginnivan, to a degree, like they were in the top 10 Collingwood players on the ground on the weekend. You know, Pendlebury was there, but it wasn't their big names. It wasn't Darcy Moore. It wasn't Myercheck. It wasn't the other Dacos. I've forgotten his name. You know, like it wasn't those. It was. I think that's what's the difference between games at the moment is that your bottom 6 are the ones that are going to get you over the line in games like this. Your top 6 are going to be the ones that win your grand finals. It's
although one thing I would point out with GWS, and this is going to leave a lot of egg on Freo's face, but Jesse Hogan, how did they let him go for a 3rd round pick? It is beyond me. Like that is up there with you know, like
Melbourne, to be honest, I still wish he was at Melbourne because it was just one of those things. And I reckon if he had his time again, he'd probably have liked to have stayed there. But you know, we're going to move on. That was 2018 was his last year there. 19, that's 5 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you know, you wouldn't have Stephen May if you still had Jesse Hogan.
And I wouldn't have a flag, and I wouldn't have all these beautiful posters behind me, which match all the ones that you don't. Hey, so that was our scoreboard for round 9. All right, before we wrap up, remember this beautiful show has been sponsored by the magnificent people of Techplex Solutions. For all your home and business security needs, get onto them on their Facebook page. Absolutely sensational. And they look after us. Tell them that Lace Out sent you, and they'll look after you. 1 week at a time, Charlie. Looking at this week's games before we wrap up this massive episode. Games this week. Who do you like? What sort of catches your eye for the round coming towards us?
Well, I mean, I am an optimist, so I'm going to say the Bombers will win. I'm going to be bold and say North are going to surprise the Swans. With Nick Larkey kicking more than half their goals, and I reckon Freo are going to surprise the Cats as well.
Ooh, interesting. So you've gone with North Sydney, you've gone with Freo, Geelong, and you've also gone. What was the other game that you mentioned?
Essendon, Richmond. I reckon.
Green time. What more could you ask for? And look, I'm a Melbourne guy. It's 2nd versus 3rd on the ladder. Port Adelaide versus Melbourne. Adelaide Oval. Friday night, like strap yourselves in, ladies and gentlemen. Tell your husbands and wives that you cannot do a thing because you're going to be watching arguably the best game of the weekend. I reckon the Q clash, Brisbane versus Gold Coast. If Gold Coast are the semi-real deal, this is the game to prove it. Dreamtime we know about, but how good's Carlton Collingwood MCG? Like, which is the real going to show up? And the other one, which is going to be an interesting for just to sort of see is it going to start the demise. GWS versus St Kilda at
up in Sydney as well. You know,
play really well up there, and a double road trip for the people at St Kilda.
Yeah, And no, look, and I think it'll be an interesting round of footy. The 8 is definitely taking shape, but I think I think that there is an issue with the AFL where the bottom 3 are awful, and the one game we didn't mention is the tank off between Hawthorn and West Coast Eagles down in Tasmania.
I like that.
So, I think it'll basically be impossible for Hawthorn to lose no matter what they do. They would need to drop. Like, we'd be talking, what was that? Was it 2008 or 2009 that Carlton and Melbourne played each other for the priority pick in round 22?
Oh, it probably was about 7 years in a row we were playing for priority picks, mate. So, like, they all blend in after a while. But we were also playing for the Melbourne and Richmond were also playing for that as well too. And we happened to win a game after the won a game. We lost after the siren, and we were still accused of tanking. But I don't understand it at all.
I mean, Richmond would be happy with how that turned
out. There was also questions from the outer. I asked our listeners if there were any questions that came up. We got one from Buzz. Now, St Kilda lost on the weekend. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's why Buzz never turned up for the show. But he asked, what do you think about the standard of umpiring? Is the 4-umpire system working, in your opinion, Mr. Keegan?
Ooh. Yes and no. I mean,
you own a fencing company.
Yeah. No, like, I mean, on the one hand, 4 umpires is not going to fix the underlying issues that umpires have. There's one thing and one thing alone that's going to fix that. That's paying them more so they can focus solely on umpiring. And I think that the AFL is playing funny business if they don't think that's not a viable solution.
I don't think if you have them there full time, it's not going to make a difference whatsoever. Here's my issue with it. The rules that they've got are so up to interpretation. That's what causes the issue. It's not black and white. A lot of it is intention. It is about the feel. They've got no feel for the game whatsoever. Deliberate out of bounds is the perfect example of it. Like, when something's deliberate and when something's off the side of the boot, yet they play it all the time. When dropping the ball and holding the ball, there's rules that they've put in place that slow the game down, that causes the congestion. They should slice half of those off. But I also think that the game is so hard to umpire, and the AFL don't make it easy because of the big grey areas around the rules. If you paid them more, I don't know what more they can do. Are they going to practice running more? Are they going to practice throwing the ball up? Like, they don't want to bounce it. But what are they going to do in their spare time? I don't know. I honestly don't know. So I think make the rules easier. It makes umpiring easier. I don't know what we can say about that as well too.
No, that's fair. Like, I think
agree that they do need to be paid more. They do need to be paid more. Now, Donna Jovanovic, who's on the show also, asks this question to you, Charlie. What makes Chris Pepper such a legend? That was actually in the chat, by the way.
Well, I mean, the fact that you do a podcast, you got to give the people what they want. And, I don't think I could do a podcast. And I think, it would, as you can clearly tell from the hesitancy in my voice, making a fluid podcast is really difficult. And I think you do a really good job of it.
Oh, we appreciate. I'll tell you what's the best answer. I reckon if I put you and Tommy on the same podcast, you'd go all right. You would be the oil and water. I know you're the complete opposites of each other, but somehow you would make it work. So, questions from the outer. Thank you very much to Donna. Thank you very much to Buzz. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is your round 9 review for the 2023 AFL season. A round of applause may I offer to the great man. Oh, yes, Charlie Keegan. He's been an absolute star. So give him a like. Give him a like in the show notes to make sure that you give Lace Out a like, put it on iTunes, put it on Spotify, tell your friends about us, because the more people that get to hear us, that's why Charlie's on here, because he liked us. And I said, hey, big fella, you want to come on? And he said, I'd love to. So you have been an absolute star, and no doubt we are going to have you on again. So round 10 kicks off this week. We're into double digits already. The season is absolutely flying. But as we do, Charlie Keegan, I know this is the part that you've been waiting for. I have one question and one question for you only. Charlie Keegan, mad Essendon supporter, loyal lace outlaw, and dead set all-round good bloke. How do you want your footy?
Lace out.
Have a great weekend, listeners. Hope your team wins. Unless you're Port Adelaide, and I hope we thump you.
Have a good one, folks.
Thanks for listening to the latest episode of Lace Out. Head over to iTunes and Spotify to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. And remember, join us every single Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, on our Facebook page with yours truly, Christopher Pepper, and the co-host with the most, Jamie Wallis, giving you your footy how you want it. Lace out.